Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Shadows Podcast. This is the last episode of our month of July recordings that we're doing here. Another one of our veteran series. And I'm thrilled to have with me Sylvester Jenkins the third. I'm the third as well. I got to
Okay.
ask you before we get going, if you go by any nicknames like Trey or Trip or anything like that?
No, I didn't. I people ask me that all the time, man, and I never have at no point in time.
Okay. Yeah. People always ask me, Trip, where does that come from? And the third, triplet
Yeah,
trip. So, all
nice.
right. So, we connected, gosh, it was about a month or two ago. And then I think I talked to you when I was visiting down in California when
Right. Yeah,
prior to the
absolutely.
move.
Yeah.
And where are you located at?
So I'm located in Clarksville, Tennessee, right outside of Fort Campbell.
Okay. And yeah, Tennessee, I think before we hit the road and head to California, I think Nashville is going to be one of our check off little bucket list place to go.
Oh yeah, man, great spot to go to, man. A lot of things to do, especially when you go downtown on Broadway. You'll
Yeah.
love every bit of it, man. The whole strip is amazing.
What's like a good food spot down there?
Oh man, I always turn people to Hattie B's, man. It's a
Oh, I
chicken
know Hattie
spot.
B's.
Oh, okay. Yeah, man. So I always tell people if you've never been to Nashville before, man, stop by Hattie B's, get you some good chicken, some good southern for okay.
Yep. Got Hattie
Nice.
B's on promoting that on my other laptop. Yeah. They have a Hattie B's in Birmingham, but man, it is so good.
Yeah,
So good.
definitely,
What
man.
what's your temp level with the Hattie B's chicken?
Oh man. I'm kind of a mild guy nowadays, man. I really don't do too much spicy food that much.
Yeah. I'm I hadn't gone to shut the cluck up. Right. I haven't gotten to
No,
that level yet.
I ain't trying to go there, man. Hey, I'm a little older now, man.
That acid reflex, all that stuff.
Yeah, man.
Yep. So you've got a book I got right here in front of me. So definitely show this off. From combat to comeback, how to conquer life's balances of adversity. I was telling you before we hit record, a couple of things about this book, folks. Is a playbook for any sort of adversity you have in life, whether it's physical, emotional, spiritual, social, mental. And then the one thing I do really like about his book is, and I was telling him this, a lot of times people have served and they write a book, and it's almost like you have to serve to understand the lingo and where they're coming from. But this book can appeal to anyone because, I mean, it talks about like childhood traumas. I mean, just all sorts of adversities that we go through and how to bounce back from it. Very well written. We will have the link to purchase the book in the episode description. And then if you're following the Instagram page, we're going to keep plugging it on there as well. And I like the quote you got right at the beginning. The only time success comes before work is in the dictionary, from the great
Yes,
Vince
sir.
Lombardi. So, I mean, amazing, amazing book. But do want to start with the rapid fire questions that we do on here. So, first one for you. Outside of your book, what is a book recommendation for our listeners?
Uh, a book recommendation, Green Light by Matthew McConaughey. I
Great
think
book.
it was, yeah, it's a great book, man. I think it's similar to my book, but I'm not gonna sit here and say like it's just like it. But he's speaking about life and how God gives you all these green lights, or whether you should keep moving forward or not, man. And I think it's well written. He's being very transparent and vulnerable about his movie career and his success. So I think it's a great book to actually connect with the him himself, and then know that you're just like him and you can do the same thing in return.
Yeah, to me, the one that I remember was when he went to Australia to live
Oh
with that
yeah,
family.
yeah,
Man,
man.
they kept driving. He's like, "Oh, we're gonna be living in Sydney. Oh, Melbourne." And then it was out in the middle of nowhere. He was basically Harry Potter living with the Dursleys. What it what it came down to. What is a fear you have?
Fear I have, man, to be honest with you, is losing my family. I'm big
Mm,
on family, man, very family oriented. And one of the things, man, that is one of my keys that keep me grounded is knowing that who I am as a father and a husband. So losing my family would be one of my biggest fears.
Okay, understandable. What is that one song on your playlist that you would be embarrassed if anybody else knew you listened to?
Uh, I would say, uh, what's the song, man? Man, that's a good one, man. Cause I probably got a couple of them, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to
We all
say,
do, I think.
I would probably have to say "In Game" by Taylor Swift.
Okay, a little Swifty in you. That's all right.
Yeah, "In Game" by Taylor Swift, man.
Okay. Uh, what is a guilty pleasure you have?
Oh man, a guilty pleasure I have is I would say eating sweets in the middle of the night.
Mm,
Yeah,
yep.
like cookies and chocolate, man. While watching like comedies.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just find myself in a position of where I just want to actually be human, man. And sometimes I binge on eating snacks, man, while watching comedies, man, just having a good time. This is like my guilty pleasure, honestly.
Okay. And dinner for three historical figures who are no longer with us. Who do you break bread with?
Man, that's a deep question. I'm not gonna lie. I would have to say Bob Proctor, Frederick Douglass, and the Apostle Paul.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Okay. So that was a deep question. You had those three ready though.
No, I mean, man, it's something that I had got asked before, and it's
Yeah,
something
yeah,
that I sat here and wondered, like, if I had the opportunity to sit with these three gentlemen,
yeah.
how would it be? And I think all of them in has a level of resilience, inspiration, hope, and just a strong character about them, man, that portrays so far among so many things when it comes down to the way we live our life and how we go about just everything that goes on around us.
Yeah. Bob Proctor. He's Canadian, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So probably really nice guy, nice group to hang out with.
Oh yeah, man,
And
absolutely.
now we're gonna roll into your story. So for your story here, take our listeners back to like your childhood. Like, what are some of your childhood memories? What did the
Oh wow.
family do?
Okay, so man, I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I'm gonna keep it short and brief because if you want to learn more, you can always get the book. But I'm gonna tell you right now, uh, I'm originally from Columbus, Georgia. I grew up in a fatherless, at-risk youth. Gaines became a surrogate family for me. I stumbled through school. I failed multiple times. When I say failed multiple times, I failed the fourth grade, the sixth grade, the eighth grade, 10th grade summer school, and the 12th grade. And I took the ASVAB 4 times trying to join the military. I tried to join every branch. When I say every branch, the Army, the Navy, the Marines, and the Air Force. And I failed initially at the Army, um, but then I had a second chance to go through, and I made it. But to have that level of resilience when it came down to experiencing that, and to push through, man, it was definitely one of my greatest accomplishments to me, just because of where I came from. My mother, she worked tooth and nail uh, as a single parent. She worked 12-hour shifts for minimum wage, 7 days a week. So she was always out of the loop. I was a latchkey kid. I might be telling my age by saying that, but I
Same
was a
here.
latchkey kid. Yeah. So coming home, it was just easy for me to get pulled into the environment of the
Yeah.
streets and experienced a lot of things dealing with gangs, drugs, and multiple violent experiences, man. But I joined the military, and during that time frame of joining the military, man, I deployed multiple times to Iraq and Afghanistan. I suffered a bitter divorce that left me emotionally scarred. On my third deployment, I came back home to nothing. When I say I came back home to nothing, I came back home to nothing. The car was gone, the house was empty. My bank account was drained, and my family had became a memory. You know, I had resorted to drugs and alcohol to suppress the pain. Paul, my son, had became my therapist, and I was popping perks like Tic Tacs. I was broker than a joke and about to choke, man. I was really at the point where I wanted to take my own life. I was literally standing in the darkness of my shadow, and I almost took my own life. But it was at this moment where I had a deep conversation with God, and I realized that I wasn't born to be average, that I was built for battle, and that hitting rock bottom wasn't the end of the world, that it was the foundation that formed the greatest growth inside of me. I truly felt like he was telling me that I had to make you uncomfortable, or otherwise you wouldn't never move. Yeah.
Comfortable
So
being uncomfortable.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yep.
So
So,
so
well, I was gonna say a couple
so today,
questions.
oh yeah, go ahead, hit me with them.
So you mentioned, you know, out on the streets. How was that with your mother? Like, did she know you were in that gang lifestyle, or was that something that? Because I'm assuming if you were, she wasn't signing off on that. She was like, "Look, you
Oh
got to
no.
get your head straight." How was that in terms of conflict with your family life?
Oh no, man. So my mother never knew about any of those things, man. My older brother was the one that was really out and about doing all the things up under the sun. So I learned from his mistakes, all
Mm,
the hiccups that he made throughout the process of him being in the streets. I was like, okay, so I ain't gonna do that. Okay, so I'm gonna just do it this way so she wouldn't know. So I was
yeah,
able to, cover up a lot of my mess that I was in just due to the fact of that. And then when she worked, man, she worked from like 7 in the morning or sometimes 7 in the evening. So from 7 in the evening to 7 in the morning, man, I was free. I was free, home by myself, didn't have nobody watching me. So it was easy for me to just, go out there. And then she had a specific time when she go on break, right? So I knew to be home at that time when she called, or sometimes I wait until she called and
yeah.
then go out. So I'll be
So
out all night.
you're retired veteran, public speaker. I mean, you're doing some great things, author. So I know in hindsight, you look back and there's got to be something from that time period where you just shake your head and you're like, that was probably my lowest of low moments during that span. What was that moment for you?
While I was in the military,
No, no, no. Before the military, back when you were
oh,
out
before
on
the
the
military.
streets. Yeah.
Oh man, like I can remember, man. This is when I came to the realization. This is what put me in the direction of wanting to get away.
Yeah.
So I was selling drugs, nickel and diamond, man. Like any drug dealer out there that say he's a big time hustler, if you ain't moving weight like Pablo Escobar, he ain't doing nothing.
Yeah.
But in the midst of that, man, I'm telling you right now, I was out there nickel and diamond, a street boy, corner kid. And in the midst of standing on the corner, man, I had a 38 in my back, in the small of my back and crack in my front pocket. And I was getting ready to go make this exchange. And in the midst of that, I was like, man, this can't be it. Cause I was just surviving. I was just going off the image of what I saw. Cause, sometimes your environment dictates your requirement. And when I was going through that and experiencing that, man, I was like, I felt like there was a little more to me than that, man. This can't be it. Because, my mother, she was doing the best she could to support us. And that was one of the major things that stuck to me, man. My mother was working tooth and nail to provide for me and my brothers. And
Yeah.
she was always crying, always going through the motions. She was scared for our lives on multiple occasions. And just seeing what my brother went through, because he had got locked up. He got locked up. And when he got locked up, I seen the tears that was rolling down her face. And I constantly tried to comfort her through those times. And I was like, man, I got to be the one to step up to the plate. Even my brother said it, man, like, hey, you got to make a move, man. Like, she can't have both of us out here like this, man. Something got to change. And it was at that point, man, I gotta figure out, like, how can I make my mother proud? How can I be this champion for my mother? Because I don't want to let her down. I don't want her to feel like she failed at parenting, because some of the things she endured wasn't all her fault. You understand what I'm saying? So for me, I felt like at that moment in time, man, like, me kept continuously failing at school wasn't the product. So I felt like I couldn't go to college. I didn't think I was smart enough. I had a teacher tell me that she didn't think I was college material. So, your words create worlds. And at that point in time, I thought, hey, I'm too dumb for college. So what's the next best thing? The military. It's all physical. I felt that's what I was thinking. It was all physical. And that's how I operated. That's what I thought. So I chose to try to join the military. And then that's what happened when it came to me fell into ASVAB. Then I started to think, man, am I too dumb for the military too? So just going through the motion, man, just continuing to push forward. I just kept my mother in my forefront, man, and what my brother shared with me, and just chose to try to create this path, man, and just keep fighting and driving on.
Mention in your book, what would you like to see done to, because I agree. I think we need to focus more on childhood trauma. I don't
Oh,
think there's enough, you hear about mental health, but man, childhood trauma is a real thing that follows people
yeah.
around for 30, 40, 50 years. What would you like to see change to put more of a focus on that?
Man, I would like to see just as much as awareness as people bring up like mental health. You don't never hear anybody talk about ACEs, man. Adverse childhood experiences, everybody experienced them. I think that's one of the biggest things that creates because you wasn't born with fear. You wasn't
They go
born with
hand
it.
in hand.
Yeah, it was instilled in you. This is your condition. This is what you was conditioned to learn and do. So I think, everybody should take an opportunity to take, the ACEs test. It's online. All you got to do is Google it. Type in ACEs, ACES, and then just Google it, and it'll test that'll pop up. And when I took the test, this is what got me like, whoa, man! It shows all the demographics of the percentage that you're in. And when I took it, I noticed my score was a 5. And when I seen the demographics behind it, how much I had an opportunity of catching diseases, heart disease, or committing suicide, man, I had a 1,200% chance that somebody would have scored 0 of committing suicide. I was like, and it made me connect the dots when it came down to my journey of who I am. And when I took this, I noticed a lot of things that I experienced, whether it was, having an alcoholic parents, abusive parent, or my father not being in my life, or, just going through the motions of any of those trials and tribulations that you might experience as a kid. It affects you as an adult. Don't think just because it's in the past that it doesn't affect you. You have to use that as an opportunity to realize like some of the things that I have experienced in my life wasn't my fault, but I don't have to let it to be my finish. I don't have to let this continue to prevent me from doing the things that I was created to be and do.
And looking behind you on that wall, I mean, you very well decorated career. Uh, I'm sure there was a point in time where you never would have thought that would be possible
Yeah,
to be sitting here as an author, as a public speaker, retired military. What would you say to that younger version of yourself?
man, I would go back to that person and I would say, you are enough. You have everything that it takes to become what you think you should be compared to what people think you can be, because people put limits on you.
Yes.
And and like the biggest way, I mean, the quickest way to kill a big dream is tell it to a small mind. And there's some people that are gonna doubt you throughout the time span of your life, that's gonna cause you to forget who you are, who you truly meant to be. And I would tell that to myself, my younger self, because it's gonna be all right. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna be great. You are enough. That's what I'll tell myself.
Okay. And where do you think you'd be if the military, like if you just would have struck out on the military altogether, where do you think you'd be today?
In jail or dead.
Mm.
Honestly, in jail or dead, man. I think just due to the fact of the environment that I was in and the conditions that I experienced, I know a lot of people that I used to hang with, grew up with, they're either no longer here in jail or doing the same thing we were doing when we was teenagers.
Yeah. Where was that paradigm shift for you when you were in the military? So you joined the army, and I'm sure it was not the smoothest of transitions for you, coming
No.
from your upbringings to the military. Where was that point where you're like, okay, you know what? I think I got some potential here. I think I can actually do something with this military opportunity that's put in front of me.
Yeah, it was actually after that divorce, after my divorce,
Mm,
and I went through that whole motion when I realized that I was built for battle. When I realized that, I started to focus more on my career. I started to focus more into myself. Now, notice how I said I was built for battle. I didn't say I was equipped for battle. Now, at this time, you know, once you learn to adapt in your environment, it's easy to progress in there, right?
yeah,
So I learned the environment of the military. I learned to adapt. I built this personality. I had developed this mask, if you want to say, that caused me to be able to bob and weave through everything that I experienced while I was in there. I was still hurting internally on the inside, and I still had a lot of demons that I never overcome. I just smothered it with success when it came to my career. That's what I did. So just going through the motions, I adapted to my environment and was able to progress to a point where I seen success, but I didn't know what my lid was when it came down to it. I didn't know how to say job well done. I just wanted more. I was
yeah.
hungry for it.
Looking back, what was the proudest moment of your military career?
Oh man, the proudest moment of my military career was when I became a first sergeant. When I put on that diamond, that was one of the most proudest moments. I had a couple of them honestly. It was my third deployment was one of my biggest ones. I would say that because although I went through that divorce prior to it, I had somebody who I felt believed in me more than I believed in myself. And
Mm,
I never came in the military looking to become a leader, right? I just consider myself to be a follower that transitioned into a manager. And so on my third deployment, right before we deployed, I had this soldier tell all his parents all these great things about me. And to, really hear somebody outside of your family say all these great things about you and you not even trying to do it or trying to be that individual, you just being yourself.
yeah.
And then for that person or individual's family to come up to you and share their thoughts or give you their blessing when it comes down to the care and welfare of their child, it's a whole nother level, man. So I think that was one of the greatest moments for me, and then becoming a first sergeant because I always wanted to do it.
Yeah, that's something I tell people a lot about the military. Is I'm like, look, a lot of people join just for their own personal reasons, and every one of those reasons are right, whether it's patriotism, school,
Yeah, yeah.
stability. But it's almost like a lot of us join for that, but then we find our why, which is, like you said, somebody that has left their hometown for whatever reason, decided to join, raise their right hand, put their life on the line if need be, and then you can be that person that really like buys into them and sees something in them. And really, it's like their parents are trusting you to take care of them in the military. And when you get through to somebody, that's a good feeling. That is a really good feeling, especially when they
Yeah.
tell you, like, hey, I'm here today because of you. Hey, I'm still serving because of you. And I'm sure you saw a lot of that as a first sergeant.
Man, I still hear it to this day. I've been retired since 2020, and I still have soldiers that reach out to me, thanking me, telling me because of you, I'm getting promoted, or can you be at my promotion? Can you promote me? Or calling me for advice or reaching out to me, just asking for what would I do in this situation, man. And when they do that after the fact that you're gone, you know you truly made an impact on that individual.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. And something you talk about in the book and kind of tying it into, you mentioned the deployment coming back, empty house, divorce. A lot of listeners, your book is great for this piece, but I want to hear like your thoughts on it. Uh Practicing forgiveness. Why
Mm,
is that so important to, yeah, I have been Petty Crocker a time or two in my life and have been like, nah, they can screw them. I don't want to talk to them no more. Uh,
yeah.
but I've lately, the past couple of years, have been way more forgiving to where I don't let things like that bother me. I move on, or I'm like, hey, I forgive them. That's something they got to deal with. Pray
Right.
for them. But talk about the
Yeah.
importance of practicing forgiveness.
Yeah. So I tell a lot of people, man, forgiveness is not for the individual, it's for yourself because you carry around this burden that gets you nowhere. It's like in the sense of you're holding this grudge with this individual, man, and you're preventing yourself from catching your blessings anytime while you're going through this situation. Like you can literally continue to move forward with your life. But you're so bogged down by this individual who probably, done you wrong somewhere down the line. And it's something that I feel that it's the currency you have, right? The biggest currency that we have is time.
Hmm.
And where we spend it, we can't get no refund wherever we spend it at.
Yeah.
So if you're sitting here being focused on what this person did to you and how they done you wrong, like you can never continue to move forward with your life, man. So forgiveness is not for the individual, it's for you to continue to move forward with your life and be the person and become who you should be, because all you're doing is just preventing your hands from catching your blessings anytime you're doing that.
Yeah. And you mentioned you were like at a low. You were
Yeah,
suicidal. You were in that dark room. What advice would you give to anybody out there? Because I'm sure someone listening to this podcast, they may not in the moment, but there may be a time down the road where life just slaps them, and they are, my gosh, I'm in such a dark spot, just like you were, and they feel like that's the option, that's the way to get out of it. What advice would you have for someone since you've been in those shoes before?
absolutely. I would tell them to seek support. Surround themselves with individuals who they trust in their network, friends, family. Find a mentor. Therapy is crucial. Let me say that
Yes.
for you again. Therapy is crucial. When it comes down to it, uh, it's not weak to speak. It's not weak to speak at all.
Yeah.
And practicing self care, like when you're in the military, it's kind of hard to prioritize yourself depending on the position that you're in and the obligation that your organization have. But practicing self-care is a priority. You are a priority because if you're not good for yourself, you'll never be good for anyone else. So take an opportunity to engage in a hobby, exercise, meditate, get adequate amount of sleep. Worrying gets you nowhere. All right. Worrying won't get you to the next level. So stop doing it. Focus on your mental and emotional well-being. And when it comes down to the positive self-talk, I always tell people the words we speak create the harvest that we reap. So if you find yourself in a position of where you thinking or speaking negatively, use this acronym that I call think. It's that is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? And is it kind? If it doesn't fit any of the descriptions in that category, what I just said, you should always think before you speak because you are the biggest inspiration that you'll ever have for yourself. And it's necessary to have that talk. So positive self-talk, seeking support, and practicing self-care is what I would tell to anybody who is going down that path. And you are built and created for more, and you are meant to be an unstoppable force. Tell yourself you're unbreakable, you're unstoppable, that you can overcome any challenges or hurdle that you might face because you wasn't born to be average. You was born to be a savage. Everybody was created on purpose for a purpose, and that's you as the person that you are, becoming that person and individual that you was created to be. That's what I would tell
You're like the Muhammad Ali of public speaking with
them.
these
I don't know
quotes.
about that, brother, but I appreciate it.
It's good stuff. This lesson's like loaded with inspirational quotes. Um, Yeah, and speaking of which, I mean, you talk about the adversities, the mental, physical, spiritual, social, emotional, very similar to like the different pillars that, in the military talk about. And it's crazy because, you were sitting here saying, definitely seek help, seek a counselor, seek a therapist. 100% agree with that. But it's crazy how society views that because when someone wants to work on their physical well-being, we go out and we get a workout partner or we get a personal trainer and we're applauded for that. When we want to work on our spiritual domain, we start going to church, we pick up a Bible, we get some friends to hang out with on Wednesdays and Sundays, and we're applauded for that. And same with
Mhm.
social, we start heading out, hanging out with people. There's apps out there where people can go find mates, and we're applauded and we show that stuff off. But when it comes to mental and emotional, it's like, hey, I need to talk to you. I'm feeling down. It's like, oh gosh. It's like, hey, I need to go see a therapist. It's like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with you? It just dumbfounded by how, as a society, we celebrate all of those other pillars. But when it comes to our mental or emotional, I did training not too long ago for some people, and it was on emotional intelligence. And they
Yeah,
were
that's
like,
huge.
they're laughing at, I ain't got time for emotions. I don't have time for all this and that. Uh,
Wow.
which was a problem just by them saying that. But it's just crazy to me how all those other pillars were like,
Yeah,
man, good job there. And people send hearts on Instagram and likes on Facebook for doing it. But
right.
guarantee you, if you were to put, hey, went to mental health today, someone's gonna, they may not necessarily, they may send you a heart or a thumbs up, but they're gonna say to the person next to them, like, dang, so Sylvester's got some
Some
issues going on
issues.
here.
Yeah, you might not even have any issues, man. It's good just in general, just due to the fact that you get an opportunity to get a biased opinion and the strategies and techniques that you can use to help you figure out who you are, where things started from. You know, some of the things that you're experiencing now as an adult, you might not feel like you have any issues or problems, but you do. Like overall, you do, man. Like everybody got something. The biggest lie that we tell everybody in ourselves is that I'm fine. I told myself that lie so many times. You know, I found myself in a position of where I was a high functioning alcoholic. I was knocking down a fifth a day, a Crown, Paul, Henny, whatever it might be. I was knocking these bottles down like it was nothing and going to work and running 4 miles, calling cadence, taking over companies, organizations, and going out there and being my best self, man. And I always told people that I was fine when I really wasn't, man. I lost who I was. And we a lot of times we get caught up in our rank. We get caught up in being the best husband, father, mother, sister, brother, child, whatever it might be. But who are you for yourself? Who are you for yourself? And the best person that you can be for yourself is the one that pay attention to the things that you experience and go through and say, hey, I really need to figure out what's going on here. Peel back the onion and figure out what exactly is transpiring. And the only way you're going to do that, if you're going to get, therapy, get help, see a counselor, see behavioral health, whatever it might be. This would prevent a lot of people from continuing to go down that road. And when you spoke on emotional intelligence, brother, that is one of the biggest attributes any leader should have. That's one of the biggest things, man. I am so big on emotional intelligence to the point because it's self-mastery. You learning
Me,
how to control the thermostat and not the thermometer. That's what
yeah.
you're doing. You learn how to control yourself in any environment that you're in. When somebody is hostile, going at your throat, chewing your behind, you can easily sit there and speak with logic. You can easily go in there and command a room without any hardship. You can have that level of empathy and compassion for the individual who you're talking to, and be able to uh, come up with the problems and salute. I mean, come up with the solutions to any situation you might endure, man. I think that is one of the biggest attributes. So shout outs to you for teaching that to other people, but then also having a level of yourself, man, as far as when it comes down to EQ.
I appreciate that. And people that have, based off studies, the lowest EQ or the lowest emotional intelligence scores are leaders, people in a leadership
Yeah.
role. And and I do training for some leaders, and it's I'll get the feedback afterwards, and a lot of times it's like, don't understand why I need this training. My emotions are great. You can almost read it in the feedback that it's like,
Mhm.
this is great. I'm a little irked that I had to sit through, and I'm like, there it goes right there, low EQ score.
Yeah.
Um, so it's, yeah, very good stuff. I'm glad to see like that, and emotion or mental health starting to get a little bit more attention. And a large
Oh
part of
yeah.
that was due to the pandemic,
COVID. Yeah,
COVID
COVID.
20. Yeah, 20 March of 2020, our whole world changed. A lot of things are still uh, in place because of what happened then. But you call that the year of adversity. So talk to us, because you retired
Oh
in
man. Yeah.
2020. So what was that year like for you in that time?
Man, it was that was, you remember when I spoke about being built for battle? This is when I became equipped for battle right here.
Mm,
So I transitioned from the military in 2020, but that transition to civilian life was a struggle for me in itself. You know, I was grappled with PTSD, anxiety, and depression while the world was gripped by COVID-19, the pandemic, and I was isolated and disconnected from the world. Man, I felt like I was lost at sea of uncertainty, right? And I was burdened down. I was stressed, depressed, and overwhelmed with debt. I found myself on the verge of losing everything, man, my family, my home, and the very essence of who I was, man. I didn't know who I was anymore because last time I had been Sylvester Jenkins was when I was 19. I was now this 40-year-old man. And, you know, like I said, you become conditioned in your environment. So all you know is military, man. Like this is your life. This is who you are. But I made that transition during the pandemic. Just so happened it happened the same month. This is what was so crazy to me, man. Like the same month I was set to retire is the same month the pandemic hit. So March of 2020 was, you know, a whole new world and experience for me. Not only that, but the world was, you know, hit by that. And what I refused to do though, man, I could have took that as an opportunity to continue to be in this dark place and just find myself in a position of where like woe is me and weeping. But I seen it as a gift. I changed my perception of the environment that I was in because your perception affects your performance, man. You know, I always tell people the three H's, right? Head, heart, hand, right? Because your thoughts drive your emotions. Your emotions drive your behavior, which affects your performance. Head, heart, hand. So when it came to that situation, I realized that once I changed my perception, I was able to change everything around me. So although the pandemic had us quarantined, right? I was able to spend time with my family and reconnect with my wife and kids. People don't think about that. Although that we was quarantined, I was able to invest more in myself. You know, I didn't have to go to work. I didn't have to go immediately back in there. So, and then at the same time, I grew spiritually, I grew emotionally, I grew mentally, and I grew physically when it came down to that situation, man. And I was able to develop this system that I share with everybody within this book. And it's all practical advice, but it all started with me first, man, because when I was on this emotional roller coaster, I refused to let, you know, what was transpiring in front of me shatter me. You know, instead, I seized that opportunity to invest in myself, to grow, to unravel the depths of my being, my well-being. I realized who I truly was. That's why you're able to see a lot of the stories in my book. This is me really taking the weight off my shoulders in my book, From Combat to Comeback. This is me letting go of all the things that I experienced in my life, because this is how I found out all those things. Everything that I learned when I was going through therapy, everything that I learned when I was going through behavioral health, it's all in this book, man. Like when I found myself in the position of starting to journal, like where it started from. You know, I go back to, you know, my childhood when I was in elementary school. I go all the way back to kindergarten, all the way up to who I am today. So I believe everybody has this though, man. You know, you realize at this point, whenever you wake up in the morning, that you have a choice. You have an empowering choice to reclaim control over your life. And that's all I did was turn my pain into purpose, a purpose to lead me to write this book. You know what I'm saying? And I think the title itself, you know, is the best fit for it because everybody experienced combat. You ain't got to be in uniform to experience combat. It's not just about the brave men and women that go out here and fight for this country. It's about, you know what I'm saying, you facing, you know, the adversity in your finances. I was broke than a joke, man. I told you I was about to lose my home. And I tell you in this book steps that you can do in order to either create a side hustle or compound, you know, your money and invest it. I give you steps and tools and strategies and do this. When it comes down to your relationship, your marriage, I told you mine was on the rocks and I was about to lose it. I actually give steps on what you can do in order to enhance your relationship. When it comes down to the communication with your spouse, regardless of whether it's male or female, we're built on connection, man. These are the things that we don't have no clue about, that nobody sit here and give you an instruction manual on, but I want to provide you with the tools and strategies in order to overcome it, man. And so that's been one of the biggest hurdles for me, was 2020, was that transition from me going from who I used to be to who I am today. And it was a struggle, but overall it was a blessing in disguise that I never seen until I changed my perception.
Yeah, I can agree. 2020 to me was, and I know it wasn't as generous to everybody out there, but for
Right.
me, I learned a lot about myself. I did the podcast because of the pandemic. I think that would still be a thought in
Look
my
at that.
head
Yep.
had
Look
had
at
that
that.
not happened. And uh, just how I was able to grow internally and with my family. And I think that was,
Yep.
like you said, really big piece of that. You mentioned two things. You mentioned, the first one I want to ask about is journaling.
Mm-hmm.
Tell listener, because when I first heard journaling, it's actually a tool that I talk about in emotional intelligence. When I first heard like, oh, journaling is what you need to do, I think of like a glittery book with a lock on it that's under a
Exactly.
mattress. And I'm like, no,
Yep.
I can't do that.
Yeah.
That's not cool. But uh I've journaled a lot. I've actually written letters to people and,
Right.
or typed up emails in a Word document, not in Outlook, but that I'm sending to people because it's a therapeutic way of getting it out of my head and getting it off my chest and
Yep.
expressing. You almost feel like you've talked to them by writing or sending them a letter or driving in the car with no music on. You pause at Taylor Swift for a little bit and you just like have a conversation with that person. You feel
Right.
like, all right, now I don't even need to say nothing to them. But Abraham Lincoln used to journal and used to write letters to people and then would store them. Eventually they got out. Mark Twain used to write letters and then give them to people. But it's been historically, great leaders have been journaling for quite some time. Talk to us about the importance of that for especially our male listeners out there that are like, that I know for a fact they're like, nah, I ain't got time for journaling. That's for my wife and my daughter to do.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. Like when it was shared with me, I postponed it for a long period of time. I postponed doing any activity. So anytime that you might seek therapy or counseling, they might also issue you some medication, some drugs, whatever it might be. But um, I didn't want to be chained to a pill. And so one of the things that they suggested was, taking the opportunity to figure out some of the things that you deal with. And I started writing. This is how I wrote my first book. This is how I wrote all my books, pretty much, except I think one of them. I just went off my knowledge, but I started journaling, and it's one of the biggest reliefs that you can ever have. Once you put what you experienced throughout that day, like, you woke up this morning and you was feeling, what I'm saying, bogged down and worried about something. You was experiencing something. And when you put that on paper and you able to read and analyze it, you're able to dissect some of the things that you probably was experiencing during that time, man. I think it was it's one of the biggest factors that you can ever go through as far as journaling and putting your life on paper. And then if you are trying to get rid of something, like it's been multiple times where I wrote something of how I was feeling. If it was negative, ripped the page out, balled it up, threw it away, or even burned it, saying
Mhm.
that's the past. It's no
Yep.
longer me.
Yep. Absolutely. And I heard, what was it, overwriting? Have you ever heard of that?
No,
Where
what?
you'll write. So if I'm mad at you and I'm like, I'm gonna write you a letter. And
Yeah.
for our auditory podcast listeners, I'll explain it. So I'm just gonna take a standard sheet of paper and I'm gonna write it out line by line, just how I feel about you. And then the next time I come back to it, I'm gonna flip that page upside down and I'm gonna write over it. But I'm just gonna write how exactly I'm feeling. Later on in the
Mm,
day, if it's bothering me, I'm gonna turn it sideways and just start writing it again. It's gonna look like a
oh,
big
that's
ink
good.
blot after a while, but it's not about, hey, me going back and rereading that and someone else possibly finding it. It is
Right.
just I'm getting it all off my chest,
Right.
and that is one way of doing it. And
Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, burning, ripping up the letters,
Yeah,
um, throwing them in the trash, getting rid of them somehow. I wouldn't suggest necessarily giving them to people if you're trying to
no,
get over that, because they'll probably combat it with some comments. But yeah,
yeah,
definitely a very good tool
it's
for.
yeah, very good tool.
Talk to us about PTSD, because I tell my wife all the
Yeah.
time. She's into psychology, and her and I talk about it. And PTSD is perhaps like one of the most overused, misused terms, because someone
Yeah,
will say, "Oh, I slammed my finger in the door." Anytime I hear it, I just get PT. Talk to us about your battles with PTSD.
yeah, man. So I never thought it was an issue, right?
Hmm.
It took my wife bringing it to my attention. You know, I had multiple family members told me I had changed from when I came back from, um, deployments and all this other things, man. But it really stuck out to me when some of the things that I endured, like when you go in a restaurant, like when I go in a restaurant, man, I got to be facing towards the door. You know what I'm saying? I'm constantly like looking over my
Okay.
shoulder, my back facing towards, you know what I'm saying, in any type of restaurant. It don't matter. I need to be facing toward the entrance, right? Or when I'm, man, one of the biggest things that I experienced when I knew I specifically needed help was when my son, we was walking out of the Walmart, and there was a empty Heineken box, 12 pack, an empty box, and my son was going over to kick it, and I grabbed him, and I
Mm.
pulled him over to the ground, and I pulled him over to the ground. I look back at it now and I laugh, but I noticed, you know what I'm saying, in that instance that I needed help, because I felt like that could have been an explosive device, man. I felt like that could have been literally an IED and he could have died. That what went off in my head when he was going to do that. That was like my thought. Is it true? You know what I'm saying? So it was hard for me to decipher between possibility and probability. You know what I'm saying? What's the likelihood that that was going to be an IED? You know what I'm saying? Walking out of
Yeah.
Walmart. What's the likelihood? And that's when, you know what I'm saying, it popped in my head, man, I need some help. And I sat down and talked with my wife about it. And we sat down and we expressed it to our kids, man. And so now we got this thing with my kids. I call it spider senses, right?
Mm.
So I said, Daddy, spider senses is going off. So they know something is wrong. You know, just like Spider-Man, whenever his spider sense is going off, something is about to happen or something is wrong, you know? So I shared with them like, Daddy, spider senses are going off. And so they know, you know what I'm saying, how to react to me and embrace me, when that happens. Whether they give me my space or a long time, or they come embrace me, to let me know everything is okay.
Mhm.
So I've been able to cope with PTSD. It might not be as bad, and everybody's journey is different, right? Everybody's journey is different. Everybody's journey is not the same. There might be somebody who's severely dealing with this stuff that just are finding or struggling to deal with this stuff. But I also outlined in my book certain techniques that you can go through, like when it comes to therapy, in order to help you cope through PTSD. But with me, it's been a successful journey, especially once I brought it to awareness and developed that level of self-awareness and expressed it to my family and accepted. That's the main thing. Accepted that this is a issue or something that is, going on dealing with me at this moment in time. And I think there's a lot of brothers and sisters in arms who can possibly be in denial right now, who just need to go ahead and accept it for what it is, man. Like, this is something that happened to you, but it doesn't have to define you. This doesn't have to be the end of your chapter. Like, oh, I got PTSD. Like I say, I got diagnosed with it. I don't say, I have it. Like, a
Mm.
diagnosis is what the doctor they come in and say, hey, we're going to diagnose you with this. But to say I have it, that's claiming it. I'm not gonna claim I got PTSD. I was diagnosed with PTSD because I'm gonna make sure this doesn't, overcome anything that I'm trying to do in this world.
Yeah, I definitely suggest anybody out there check out National Center for PTSD,
Oh yeah. Today
ptsd.va.gov.
was today is the last day of PTSD awareness month, man. Matter of
Yep,
fact,
they were recording. Yep.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, man.
they have PTSD coaches like through the app. They have monthly update on there. They
The
have
screening. Yeah.
PTSD bites, which are like little mini series of podcasts, I guess. But
Yeah.
it's really good stuff on there. And like you said, people say you'll hear people say it. I have PTSD, or they'll. It's so misused by people
Yeah.
when
It's a
when
diagnosis.
anything they're afraid of or any bad memory, they think it's a versus it's like you said, your mind, is it real or perceived that way? And is it traumatic to you to where it almost like incapacitates you and
Yep.
disconnects you from reality with the Heineken
Absolutely.
box. But people
Yeah.
are, oh, I left my dog outside. I have PTSD. No.
Yeah,
Um,
man.
so yeah, definitely get checked out. And I'm not a doctor. I'm only 4 years away from my degree, but yeah, they're a lot smarter with that than I am. So definitely go check it out. And yeah, so talk to us about your book, From Combat to Come Back.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hey, this book, man, has been one of the most vulnerable and transparent things I ever done. Right? It's putting my life out there to the world. Cause I don't hold back no punches as far as what I was experiencing and dealing with from my childhood, young adult years, and even throughout, the time span of my military career. I put it all on the table, man. And I wanted to let people know that being vulnerable and transparent is not a weakness. That it's absolutely a superpower if you use it right. And by using this book, this is this is a book that can actually help you to turn your stress into success and your obstacles and opportunities. This is a book that can help you turn your adversities into your victories. It can help you to overcome multiple battles that you might face. And I don't just talk about it from my lens. I speak about other people, other heroes, people that you look up to and inspired by, celebrities. I talk about Tom Brady as far as his level of resilience when it comes down to him and his career. I talk about the experiences that other people have, Oprah, Jim Carrey, Jay-Z. I talk about PTSD, like I said, finances. I go through every level of adversity that you might face in your life and give you tools and strategies to help you overcome them. Because I feel that life is not about avoiding the battle. It's about facing it head on and emerging victorious. That's what it's all about. And this book will provide you that. It will be your guide in order to do that. So I highly recommend that people get this book, man. If you're dealing with something right now, like Tripp said, whether it's emotional, mental, physical, whatever it might be, social, financial, this book will give you practical tools and strategies to help you overcome it. I promise you, you will gain something from this book if you flip these pages and read it, whatever it might be. But just keep in mind, the only time success comes before work is in the dictionary. That's the only time. So if you're not willing to put in the work, because I put in at the beginning, this book might not be for you if you're not willing to put in the work, because nothing happens overnight.
Yep. I like that. Put in the work. It's like I said, a good playbook. Definitely a really good playbook. It's not a book that's 460 pages. It's very personal to you. Like I said, reading it, I was like, man, this is super relatable for me. I felt like there was a lot of this stuff that I could either relate to, or I was reading it and was like, wow, this is good if I were to be faced with something like this. So you don't have to be in the military. You don't have to have served in the military to understand this book. He keeps it real simple for you versus, a lot of military leadership books, which are using acronyms, and it's like
Mm.
writing an enlisted performance report. Nope, his is it applies to everybody. And I even told him, I said, I even like the cover. He's rocking the business suit. Looks like he's going on Shark Tank, and he's got the military with the title in it. So it appeals to everyone. And where can I get a copy of your book?
So you can find this book on any Amazon, Kindle, Audible. You can find it on Kobo, Google Play. You can find. I'm working currently on getting it into Barnes and Noble, Books a Million, and the actual Walmart at this moment in time. So I'm trying to put it all over the globe, so therefore everybody can have this tool and guide in their hands to make sure. My goal is to just reduce the numbers, man. 22 is too much, and I want to make sure that all our, not only our brothers and sisters in arm, but people across the globe have something to reference whenever they find themselves in the position of being in their darkest moment.
End of the day, what do you want your legacy to be?
I want my legacy to be one that shares uh, that I did my best when it came down to being the person that God created me to be.
Yeah.
That I was a true example to my family in every way. I was the blueprint, to say. Like my dad was the blueprint. My grandfather was the blueprint.
And what a story this has been, like sitting here just talking to you. I mean, going from you talking about like the gang life on the streets to being rejected by almost every. I'm sure if Space Force probably would have been around, you probably would have got a rejection from them as well.
I would have got a strong rejection from them, man. Like I'm telling you, Marines told me they wouldn't even give me a shot.
I saw that in the book. Yeah, I saw that in the book. And then you joined the army, have a illustrious career. I mean, very well decorated behind you, first sergeant, and then throughout that, I mean, just this story I felt like applies to everyone, just filled with lows and highs, and at the snap of a finger, it can go from a high to a low,
Yeah.
and vice versa. And just bouncing back. So I personally want to tell you thank you for taking time, being loyal to the Shadows podcast, and being an amazing guest on here. So thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I told you earlier, Trip, thank you so much for what you're doing dealing with the podcast itself, man. Like, like you just said earlier, man, like if the pandemic never happened, the shadows would have never happened. So shout outs to you, man, because you're not just pulling just individual stories from military individuals, man. Everybody has a story to tell, and you're sharing that in multiple ways, man. So shout outs to you. I wish you much continued success behind everything you do, brother. And thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, we will definitely keep in contact. Definitely iron sharpens iron. And
Absolutely.
folks, we hope you like everything we're doing as well. If you do, please head over to Spotify, to Apple Podcasts, or theshadowspodcast.com. Leave us a review. You do not understand how much us podcasters appreciate these reviews, how much they help us, how much out in that algorithm world, how much these podcast reviews help continue to spread the word of what we're doing. So definitely encourage each and every one of you. Just take 2 minutes. It takes 2 minutes out of your day. Just leave us a little review for the podcast. Be greatly, greatly appreciated. Until next week, well, I'll actually backtrack. We're wrapping up the veteran series here this week for the month of July, but it doesn't mean we're necessarily done with the veteran series. We come back next week. We celebrate Purple Heart Day with a Purple Heart recipient, Ryan Hines. He was a recent inductee into the Purple Heart Hall of Honor, and he is going to be here on the Shadows podcast telling his emotional story about his deployment and how he received that Purple Heart. So make sure you check us out on all podcast platforms, theshadowspodcast.com. See you next week on another episode of The Shadows Podcast.